Breaking news was that Donovan Mitchell has tested positive for coronavirus, making him the second player from the Jazz to be diagnosed. Of course, Rudy Gobert, it was public last night that he did test positive for the coronavirus, hence why the NBA has decided to suspend their season as of now. You take a look because they did warn that the Utah Jazz and the teams that they had played over the last 10 days certainly needed to be aware and self-quarantine. Here are the teams that they dealt with. The Jazz traveled to Oklahoma City, Detroit, Boston, New York, and Cleveland. They hosted the Raptors and the Wizards. If you go back to February 28th, they recommended a 10-day grace period. That would take them to March 2nd. We bring in our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, who's per usual all over this. What more could you tell us about the testing of Donovan Mitchell?
Well, Donovan Mitchell tested positive in Oklahoma City, where the Jazz remain quarantined after last night's game. They have not yet been able to make their way back to Utah. But the frustration within that Jazz team, and I know the frustration of Donovan Mitchell is that they saw the cavalier attitude that Rudy Gobert showed in that news conference last week before he left the podium and he touched microphones and was touching belongings there, that he carried that into the locker room. And the fear is that he may have possibly transmitted that to at least one teammate now. But Donovan Mitchell has tested positive, the second player in the league now, the second player on the Jazz to test positive for the coronavirus.
And with that, being said, because we did see last night as well that the Jazz were held up at the arena until 2 o'clock in the morning. Are you hearing if there's any more protocol or the repercussions that are happening because they've had 2 players test positive?
Well, they tested the rest of the team last night, got the results back, and that's where they learned of Mitchell's positive test. But, there's a whole process that has to be in place between health officials in Oklahoma City, health officials in Salt Lake, to be able to transport that team back there. Royce Young, our reporter there, talked about the possibility of maybe even charter buses to get them back if they're not able to go on a plane. And so the impact now that this has, not just around the league, but this is an issue that the Jazz organization now has to work through between 2 of their most important players. Even the hotel that the Jazz stayed at in Oklahoma City has been closed to the public because of the coronavirus. I do want to talk about something else that happened here last night. We had Mavericks owner Mark Cuban. We saw his reaction. You'll see that coming up to finding out that the NBA was suspended. And then today on Get Up had this to say about the rest of the season.
Hopefully this virus runs its course over the next 60 days or so. And then at that point, we can start making decisions about, does the NBA play games, what our schedule looks like, how we progress from there.
Mark, you said 60 days. Do you think that we could see an NBA season that instead of going to mid-June actually goes to mid-August instead?
I don't think necessarily till August, but I can easily see us playing, the last 7 to 10 games of the regular season to get everybody back on course and then going right into the playoffs and going into July, if not August.
So Mark Cuban sort of throwing out 60 days. What are you hearing in terms of the NBA and their contingency plan?
They don't know. I mean, they just don't know. But they've been working on contingency plans, well beyond yesterday's events because, not only the league office, but even teams who had become very well versed in a very short time with the potential impact of the coronavirus, how it was going to impact their team, the league. Many of them were of the belief in my conversations with them that there was going to come a time that the NBA was going to miss games, and they didn't know how long it would be. It happened maybe even quicker than many expected. So the league has started that conversation with the Players Association. They had a meeting with them yesterday. The Board of Governors, the owners, they have another conference call with them today. And what it's going to take now is a lot of cooperation, a lot of collaboration to be creative. If indeed the league is able to resume play at some point, it could, as Mark Cuban said, pushing the season into the summer. I've even heard the conversation of maybe they have to even delay the start of next season to accommodate this season. But everything's on the table, and I think the league knows the importance of being able to try to finish the season, have a playoffs in some form, and crown a champion.
Listen, it's an unprecedented situation. It's certainly going to require some navigating. We know you'll be all over it. Adrian Wojnarowski joining us here for the NBA's.
The set of Get Up. I'm Mike Greenberg. He's Jay Williams. We'll be together with you in just a few minutes here as we take you through the morning in sports and obviously the overwhelming story. Jay, the suspension of the NBA season late yesterday. What was your initial reaction?
I said hours before, I thought the league needed to postpone all games, playoffs and finals. I think the NBA was a little bit late to the game. I thought they dragged their feet a little bit, honestly, when you saw the report coming out from Woj that a lot of the independent teams had different takes on it. I thought Adam Silver needed to put his foot down. Look, the reality of this is, to be frank, every gaming event needs to be postponed. March Madness needs to be postponed. Conference tournaments need to be postponed. We need to have conversations about the Olympics, Greeny. I know it's only a couple months away from now in Tokyo, Japan, but we need to start talking about this stuff. And it's okay for us to take a second and pause and think big picture instead of having a narrow focus. We'll have more tournaments. We'll have more NBA finals. We need to do this in the best interest for our people and for our society.
We'll be talking about this and obviously bringing you all of the very latest news and information relative to it. We will have Charles Barkley live on our show this morning. We'll have Jay Billis and plenty more. So we hope you will get up with us in just a few minutes here on ESPN. Right now, let me get back up to SportsCenter.
Thanks, guys. So with the NBA.
To the headline of the morning, though, the headline in all of sports. It's why we have Brian Windhorst back with us. And Wendy, you just told us what's going to happen to the Jazz and the Thunder. What's next for the rest of the NBA after word Wednesday night that the season has been suspended?
Well, Randy, the players, coaches, and staff members in the league last night were shaken. As I reached out to people across the league, they were striving to get tests. They were not prepared for this. They were not prepared for it to enter their lives so quickly. So they have to do what's most important, which is take care of their players and staff. Get them testing, find out if anybody else has the issue, and deal with it. And then I think there has to be a plan, and I think it was tremendous for Mark Cuban to be the voice of the league last night, to be an owner and a billionaire, to come out and say that there needs to be plans in place for the arena workers. I thought that was incredible leadership. And there's opportunities going to be more for leadership in pro sports in the short-term future. But the NBA's got to make sure their players are taken care of, and that's what's happening today and over the next couple of days.
It's a tremendous point about Cuban because, listen, this is a peer group, right, of which we can only hope to aspire. But when you have someone out in front, put that out there, hopefully other owners follow suit. So back to the fans here. How long can fans realistically expect this league-wide suspension in play to last?
Yeah, the best thing I can say is I don't know. But what I will say is if we look to what happened in China, and I know that it's not apples to apples and it's different, but it's what we have. The Chinese Basketball Association in China, they really felt these effects in January. The CBA shut down in the third week of January, and they are now beginning the process after successful efforts, by the way, through quarantine to stem the disease spread in that country. About 8 to 10 weeks later, they're getting ready to play again at the beginning of April. I can't say that's what's going to happen in the NBA. All I can say is that's what happened in China, and it's the one guideline that we have to go forward. What I will say is this. The NBA has asked teams to check and report back their arena availability until August 1st. So they are preparing for the possibility of just pushing back the playoffs, pushing back the finals into July and possibly even later. I do think that they want to have a season, but obviously we've got to focus on everyone's health in the short term.
Okay, I don't know about you. That is the first time I'm hearing that they have asked arenas to look at availability here until August 1st, possibly bringing into notion here that this is a true suspension as opposed to a suspension.
Yes, Randy,
with the
and they've also,
yeah.
They haven't been sitting totally on their hands. They have also looked at relocating and rescheduling the draft combine, the draft. All scouts have been pulled off the road. We're going to see just a pause right here. It's really going to be in all of America. But since we're talking about sports on this network, there's going to be a pause in sports. Doesn't mean it's over. It's just pause.
All right, so much of the league year contingent upon this. It's Brian Windhorst with the very latest for us on SportsCenter AM. And we say this and we get annoyed when we do it just in conversation. If the season ended today.
But there is a legitimate pause happening at this moment.
So if it were the case, 15 of the 16 playoff spots right now are essentially locked up, right? 15 squads, according to our Basketball Power Index, have at least a 99.9% chance of making the postseason. The only playoff spot really up for grabs is that last spot in the West.